There are so many different methods of gardening. I'm a firm believer in the fact that there's more than one right way to garden. The way I garden has evolved over time. I love my in-ground gardens for crops like white potatoes, tomatoes, and corn. But in the last few years, I've been adding raised beds to my gardens, and today I'm going to give you guys the scoop on how I feel about raised bed gardening. We have a really big planting day today. I've been waiting for this for like all week because it's just been raining and raining and raining. It is so wet. My in-ground gardens are way too wet yet to be planting in, but my raised beds are perfect. I went to the greenhouse yesterday, picked up this flat of seedlings. I'm gonna plant all of these. I'm gonna finish my containers up here, I'm gonna finish my green stock, and then also work on my raised beds out in the garden.
It's getting a little later in the morning, but it's still cool out here. So I'm gonna quick spray these fruit trees before we get to planting in the garden. The weather has been so rainy, and the petals, we had petal fall when the petals fall off the trees a little while ago, but it was just raining and raining, so I wasn't able to spray after petal fall. So I'm gonna be spraying some copper to hopefully get ahead of some disease. You can see there's, I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but there is already a little bit of disease on these. But hopefully spraying some copper will help with that. And again, not gonna go into great detail about how I do my spray routine, because I don't know if it's gonna work or not. By the way, I hope you guys stick around to the end of this video because I have something really exciting to show you. In a recent video, I said it was one of the most exciting videos we ever made, and that was true. This one's up there pretty close to that, so be sure to stick around.
It's supposed to be really nice the next few days of this week, and so I just feel this like urgency to get everything out. I'm not gonna get nearly my whole garden out, but I at least want to get like all the easier things out. So I want to get all of my raised beds planted, I want to finish all of my container gardening, and then what's left is just gonna be like potatoes, dried beans, corn, things that I have to do in like big plots in my in-ground garden. The in-ground garden is still pretty waterlogged at this point. There's like literal puddles in our yard. We haven't been able to mow for a while because there's just so much backup water. One of the main reasons that I actually started with raised beds in the first place was because this part of the garden down here was very swampy. There was always like puddles. It took forever for it to dry out enough to till. When you're tilling in like a big in-ground garden, it has to be dry enough or you will ruin your soil. If you till when the soil is wet, the soil is going to dry in big clumps and it's almost impossible to plant into that. These raised beds are no-till, and so I just come through here, pull weeds and stuff, and so it just makes it so easy. I can literally almost plant in the rain because these beds drain so well. The soil is so nice out here. The downside then to raised beds is that because they drain so well, they're also gonna dry out faster in the heat of the summer. It hasn't honestly been an issue for me. Last year in the drought, honestly, I didn't even find that my raised beds dried out that much worse than the rest of my garden. I just watered everything all together. So for me, that's not an issue, but if you are in a place that's very dry, do think about that. My handy dandy garden plan, that has kind of been through the mill at this point, honestly. Another really great thing about these raised beds that I didn't even think about initially when I put them in was that they make crop rotation so simple. It's just so easy to remember what was in each of them and then just swap it all around. It's also very easy for my brain. I love everything to be organized. I like for everything to have its place. And so it's just very simple to stay very organized with raised beds. All right, I'm gonna start by finishing out my pepper plot. The greenhouse did not have California Wonder, and they said that Ace is very close to the same thing. So I'm gonna plant Ace. And they also didn't have Orange Blaze, but they had Orange Bell. So that will do. Oh my goodness, just look at this soil. It's just so loose and beautiful and full of worms. And just for reference, it was pouring rain yesterday, like all day long. It was at least drizzling. And this soil is so workable. Love it. I'm gonna be planting butternut squash along this trellis. I'm gonna plant 3 hills of squash beside each side, and then hopefully they will mostly go up this way, but they also do have quite a bit of space to go out this way if they must, and I'm sure they will. I did have loofahs here, and loofahs are susceptible to squash bugs just like butternut squash are, but amazingly enough, the squash bugs really didn't bother the loofahs too much. They were on them, but they didn't lay a lot of eggs and stuff, so I'm just gonna plant the squash here anyways. These are squash seeds that I saved from my own squash. I just chose a nice, big, beautiful storage squash that stored super well in my cold room. So I'm gonna plant these in the hills. I have had issues with butternut squash seeds that I saved not germinating crazy well. So I'm gonna plant a whole bunch and then I will thin them. So don't freak out if I plant a whole bunch on each hill. One of the issues that I have had with planting butternut squash seeds, also cucumber seeds, is that birds come and eat them out of the ground, and it makes me so mad. So I have started just covering these with a bucket until they germinate, and then the birds seem to leave them alone. I'll come back through and water these then later, but I just want to mark right where they are so I don't lose track. I usually shoot to have about 3 or 4 plants per hill. So if all of these seeds come up, I will absolutely be thinning these.
We're gonna grow cucumbers on this trellis this year, but it needs to get moved to the raised bed down there. So I've got some rebar stakes in here holding it down that I need to pull out. A little bit about the cost of raised beds. They are a little pricey up front. These here were actually pretty cheap because I was able to get the lumber from a sawmill that sold rough cut lumber. They're having a couple problems though. I got 1-inch thick white oak lumber and they're all starting to bow out, which I'm very disappointed with. I even put a post in the ground in the middle on each side, but it's still just pushing out. So if I was to do it again, I would get 2-inch thick lumber, which would get a little more expensive, which I still don't think it would be too bad. But if you don't have the option of a local sawmill like that, you would probably have to buy some pretty expensive lumber. I wouldn't want to use treated lumber because of the chemicals. So you'd end up probably getting cedar, which is pretty expensive. And if you get the metal raised beds, those are really good, but they're also pretty expensive. But after that upfront cost there, they will last many, many years. So I definitely think it's a worthy investment. And like Michelle was saying earlier, with these raised beds, you don't need a tiller. For the rest of our garden, we do need a tiller. Ours is actually having some issues right now. We're gonna need to get a new one before too long. It's a very old tiller. And those are pretty expensive, so you have to weigh out the cost with that. Now, I know some of you are probably ready to start typing and tell me that we could have our in-ground garden without a tiller if we would just use wood chips. That is an option. We have considered that, but for us, it has been really hard to get a hold of wood chips. We've wanted to use it for chicken bedding, for different places in our garden. We've tried local services that cut down trees, pretty much can't get it from them. I've looked into Chip Drop. We bought a load of mulch, if you remember a few videos back, and it ended up being total junk.
Check out the piece of metal that I found. Like, this is not mulch.
And I'm sure we could get it from another place, but it gets expensive. Besides the difficulty of getting the wood chips, there's just the other thing of how it works. We feel like we can do a really good job with our tiller. It makes a beautiful garden. You can do wood chip gardening well, but if you don't do it right, what can happen if you put wood chips that aren't aged enough in there, it can rob your soil of nitrogen, so you can end up with very anemic looking plants. So there's just a lot of things to weigh out. For us, the tilling works. There's a cost for the tiller, for the in-ground part, and for this, it's the upfront cost of getting the raised beds. But once you got them, they will last a long, long time. All right, you wanna come help me move this thing, please? Whoa, don't go so far away, where are you going? The other thing about raised beds is you can fill them with what soil you wanna use right off the bat. So I feel like, especially if you're a beginner, that can be really, really helpful. We've spent 10 years building up our soil in our in-ground garden, and it is really nice, but it does take a lot of work and a lot of time and some money. And with the raised beds, we had to get something to fill the raised beds. So we bought some topsoil and we mixed it with compost that we made here on our homestead. And that got our raised beds a really good start. Pretty much the first year that we started planting in these raised beds, we were already growing really nice plants, just as nice as in our in-ground garden, because we were able to start out with really nice soil.
Speaking of beds, we spend at least a third of our lives in our beds, and so many mattresses are made with things like fiberglass and polyurethane foams. As you guys can clearly see, we go to a ton of work and effort to try to keep chemicals out of our home. Birch Living is a sponsor of today's video, and they make fiberglass-free mattresses. Their mattresses are made with things like organic wool, organic cotton, and natural latex. One of my very favorite things about having a birch mattress is the peace of mind that I have knowing that it's not off-gassing all kinds of chemicals into our home. We've been sleeping on our Birch Luxe mattress for over a year now, and I can tell you that I sleep so much better than I used to. Even Cody could tell after we switched over that I was sleeping much deeper and harder than I was before. Our Birch mattress is soft and comfortable, and I would literally stick it in my suitcase and take it on trips with me if it was possible. Right now is the perfect time to get your Birch mattress because they're running a big Memorial Day sale. If you go to the link in our description box and use the code BIRCHPARTNER27, you'll get 27% off plus 2 free pillows. On top of that, you get a 100-night sleep trial just to make sure that you truly love your Birch mattress. They also ship for free in the US. They're really easy to set up, but if you do need some help, they do offer in-home setup and removal of your old mattress. So use that link in the description and don't miss out on this limited time sale. The next thing that I'm going to be planting is these contender green beans. I don't plant green beans every year. What I like to do with green beans is I like to just plant a big crop one year, can a bunch for like 2 years, and that way I don't have to do them every single year because they're kind of time consuming. This year I'm just going to do one bed. I'm gonna plant 2 basil plants right here at the end of this bed. I'm gonna plant them a little bit close to these cabbages because these cabbages will be out of here before these basils get really big. My basil plants often grow into a massive bush, so I'm gonna give them plenty of space. If you want your plants to get huge, you have to give them the space to get huge. That's my #1 tip when people ask me, oh, how do you get your plants to get so huge? You've got to give them space. I got this really pretty purple basil just for something fun. So Cody is planning to put up another trellis over top of these 2 beds here. So I'm gonna plant some butterfly pea flowers along both sides. Butterfly peas are something you can harvest the flowers and you can use them to make food dyes. So like a healthy food coloring basically. And also they're just really pretty. So I'm gonna try these here. A subscriber sent these to us, so thank you so much to whoever sent these. From what I could find online, these are supposed to get tall and crawl up a trellis, but I have never dealt with these firsthand. This is just another one of my experiments. Last year we did loofahs on a trellis and they performed beautifully to the point that I don't even have to plant them again this year because I have so many loofahs still inside. So I'm gonna experiment with something different this year. I'm just gonna plant them nice and close together and then I can always thin them if they germinate well. This is one thing I do a lot of. I would rather plant them thickly and and thin than not have them come up well and have to plant all over again. Always, always, always water in your seedlings, even if it's so wet outside that the neighbors think you're nutty. The only thing that I'm gonna add to this bed this year is some parsley. I was going to do lobelia, and I did find some at the greenhouse, but the problem is it wasn't really the kind that was used medicinally. Like, it's more of a hybrid that's probably not as potent for medicine, and so I just didn't feel like spending the time getting it established if it's not gonna be that medicinal in the first place. So I'm gonna have to look into that a little bit more. One of the things that I have really been enjoying with my raised beds is how easily things are reseeding in here. So there's tons of little chamomile plants that are coming up. These here were volunteers from last year. So even though chamomile isn't necessarily a perennial, it will reseed and come up on its own. And so I don't have to go to all the work of planting these things again. In an in-ground garden, if you till, obviously not if you do the wood chip gardening, but if you till, this is something that doesn't happen because the tilling will destroy all the reseeding that happens naturally. So having your plants reseed by themselves is gonna save you a lot of time and money. And the plants that naturally reseed themselves are so hardy. You can just tell these things have got it going. They are so hardy and healthy. My other favorite, probably favorite of favorites with raised beds, I know I've said that a few times, is the fact that it just cuts way down on weeding time. I barely ever have to weed my raised beds, and when I do, it's just really simple. There's no weeds that are like growing in, like no grass that's growing in from the sides, and so somehow raised beds just don't take nearly as much time when it comes to upkeep.
Michelle is going to get stuff ready to plant her green stalk, which will be really cool, but I've got something exciting to show you. Now, this isn't even what I talked about earlier, about something that I've got for the end of this video, but something else really cool that I wanted to show you too. Check it out. There are 1, 2, 3 beehives with bees going in and out, and they are going crazy today. I'll roll some footage for you here real quick, but what happened was the other day, the kids were playing outside and they saw a swarm of bees collect on a tree right close to our house. I don't know where they came from. I'm pretty sure it wasn't from our bees here because I didn't see any bearding on the outside of the hives or anything like that, but I was able to catch them. It went pretty well, put them in this hive here, and they made that place their home. It looks like they're doing well. I'm gonna have to check them again soon, but I took some frames out of the other 2 hives and put it in there so they've got some brood and some honey to give them a really good start. So I am really excited about our bees this year, and I've still got the swarm trap set up in the back pasture and then one at our in-laws' place too. So I'm hoping to catch even maybe 1 more swarm. If that does happen, I'm gonna have to build a new hive, but I think that'd be worth it. I just really wanna get more on top of this bee thing because I would love to have our own honey. At this point, we're still just keeping bees kind of for the fun of it, which is okay because I feel like our garden stuff is doing even better since we have the bees now, which is really cool, but I definitely want to be able to have our own honey.
On my list today is to finish my container garden up here on the porch. I'm gonna first finish out this herb basket. I got a couple things and I'm just gonna kind of play around with it a little bit. I got this thyme and hopefully this will like cascade over the side of the basket. I think this is really pretty. This is just English thyme. It says full sun. It's not gonna get full sun, but hopefully it'll do okay. So thyme, chamomile, I'm gonna say there's, oh, I know what it was. I got this stevia, and my kids have already been picking leaves off and eating it. It's just super fun to add stevia leaves into tea for a little bit of natural sweetness. I got something that I'm super excited about to put into these containers because I know that these are gonna dry out really, really fast. People told me that this coconut coir stuff, the water will just pass right through. Some people line them with plastic. I didn't really feel like doing that, so I got these things instead. I think they're genius. I'm so curious to see if they're gonna work. Basically, this is a plastic globe. I got plastic because I didn't want my kids to break it. And it has like a clay, like a terracotta clay, I don't know what you call that. I don't want to try to call it something. You fill this with water and it slowly releases this water into your plants. Okay, I'm gonna soak this nub. It's called a nub, okay? I'm gonna soak this nub in water for 30 minutes. And then I'm gonna fill these with water, put the lids on and stick them into these pots. And if they work, I might get a couple more because I don't know if I'm gonna need 2 per pot or not. We'll see once. I'm gonna start with some cilantro. I really wanna see how cilantro will do in here. Do another cilantro down here. I'm also gonna do a curly basil. I know that basil needs full sun, but I just wanna see how it does. I feel like a lot of these, like, they're not gonna die. I feel like they're just not gonna get as big and bushy, and they might not produce as much, but they'll still produce something. One plant of parsley like this, out in full sun with like tons of space and a raised bed, will get to be a massive bush for me. I'm guessing that won't happen up here on my porch, but it'll still be fun to try and you'll still be able to get lots of food from it. So excited about these. I absolutely love pansies, and pansies are edible. So I thought it would be super, super fun to have some of these up here, and I could every now and then add them to a salad and the kids would think I'm best mom ever. I've also got some marigolds here. Marigolds are just a great flower to have all over the place in your garden. They help repel insects, and they're so pretty. I think I'm gonna do a green basil. Maybe I'll do that one up here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I still have 8 spots left, and I'm not exactly sure what to put lettuce. I wanna put lettuce in here somewhere. This is some butter crunch lettuce. I'm just going to go ahead and plant some of this. It's really nice to have lettuce planted kind of in steps so that it can keep coming in. This one. Okay, this is all planted. Now it just needs to be watered. I'm already very impressed. These here have been growing so beautifully. You can see how lovely those look. I think it's radishes, purple kohlrabi, kale. I should have marked. I should have marked the different pockets, and I didn't. Just gonna poke it right in there.
For me to show you what I am so excited about, we're gonna have to leave the homestead. Kids are already in the truck, ready to go. So I just need to throw this back here and we can get going. Looking good, Maddie. Got a big, huge udder. Maddie has a baby calf, which is super exciting because when we sold her, we weren't sure if she was actually bred or not, but it turns out that she was actually bred because she went the amount of time that it would have been from when we got her AI'd. So she's got a little heifer calf. Even though Maddie's not our cow anymore, that is still really, really exciting. I'm so happy for him that he was able to get a heifer calf out of her from me getting her bred. And we are really, really excited to have fresh milk again.
This is the other thing that I really, really love about raised beds is that crop rotation is so incredibly easy. I think I mentioned that before actually. And then you go and instantly freak out. Sorry.